So the assignment is it's going to translate the famous to be or not to be soliloquy in Act 3, Scene 1 into a modern day audience. You present the speech in class. Again, you have to present the speech in class. They'll send me a video of it, and I'm going to show you different students from different classes throughout the world who have done this as an assignment. Okay. So to understand the vocabulary and meaning of words, to create different types of media and for different purposes and audiences using conventions, and also to gather, create information to create this new speech or translation. When I'm marking this, I'm going to be looking for the following. I know how to translate and adapt soliloquy to be or not to be into modern day slang or vernacular. Hip hop, British slang, Cockney, person from the decade in the 20th century, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm doing checking for knowledge is not only the ability to translate, but to adapt, which means in your adaptation, you're going to either make things smaller or make things a little tighter, but the information stays the same. So I remember we talked about the fact that the version of Hamlet we saw was an adaptation of the play. They moved some things around, they didn't have certain characters, but in the end, the same message is that. If you see Macbeth does it all the time, where in Macbeth they may have scenes that they will include and some scenes will take out. Again, it's all about adaptation. Adaptation is change, but the core message stays the same. So that's what you have to do if when you both translate the text and adapt the text. Next, I know the obvious and hidden messages in this local to be or not to be. And that's a conversation we're going to go about as well. We're going to talk about what is the hidden message that he's trying to say, what is the obvious message he's trying to say. Next, I know that my speech must use consistent diction, choice of words, and vocabulary. So if you decided to write this as a person who with a certain type of vernacular or slang, you kind of keep the vernacular slang. You can't go from, oh, I want to do it as an Irish person, then to Jamaican, and then to Italian slang. It just wouldn't work. It has to be one type of voice, one type of person who would be saying these things. I know that I should cover at least 5 major points in the original text, which means simply that your speech should address 5 of the issues that he talks about in the original text. And the next one is, I know how to express and summarize the ideas in found in soliloquy to be or not to be. So it means that, again, because this is an adaptation and it's a translation, I'm not looking for word for word. I am looking for you looking at it and saying, look, a modern day audience doesn't need this level of exposition or exposition dump. So I can just have 1 or 2 words that would replace a sentence and the same message is clear. Again, for communication, I know that I must use the cultural conventions of a speech, which means that you're doing this, again, you record it and send it to me. It's going to be clear voice, proper enunciation, proper tone, use consistent slang, idiom or vernacular. And the last part is the process in which I track your work, track your outlines and rough drafts, and give you mark based upon your ability to do that in class. If you're not doing it in class or don't see it's being done, I can't really give you the marks there. Okay, so let's stop with this. Let's find a new share. Now this may require some popping around a bit. So hopefully everything goes according to plan so people can see what I'm talking about. So here's the success criteria. The goal is to read the soliloquy to be or not to be and translate it and adapt it so that a person in our world will understand the message and ideas of the speech, right? You must go beyond a strict translation. So the idea is that if you were a Hollywood director and it were post-COVID and I want to make a movie about Hamlet, but I'm not going to make the original text, I would ask a screenwriter to come on and say, oh, look, I need you to make this movie, but I need you to make it for a modern audience. I need you to understand. So one of the best examples of this would be when you look at Baz Luhrmann's version of Romeo and Juliet. That's one with young Leonardo DiCaprio and young Claire Danes. The person adapted everything from putting it into like a from a small Italian community to like a bustling metropolis. Each family member owns a corporation. They don't carry swords and daggers, they carry guns. The characters speak using the words that you find in Shakespeare, but dress and look appropriately in the way that you have in a modern society at that time. So that's an adaptation. O was another one that he did as well. O was basically taking the movie Othello and changing it to where it's a drama about a kid in basketball who's a superstar, but doesn't name his friend as the co-captain, and therefore the friend does all these things to drive Othello mad, get him killed. Very good adaptation. They changed the language completely, but the tone and what's said and how it's said matches up with what goes on in the play. Like you can literally almost go from scene to scene and say, here's the situation. They also tend to give Ophelia a little bit more agency in the modern version, because in the, you must have all read Othello. In that version, basically she kind of just gets yelled at a lot and then goes to bed and waits for Othello to kill her. And when Othello kills her, her last dying breaths are, don't blame Othello. So this one, she kind of has a little bit more agency and she says more things to say that she's not doing anything wrong. Okay, so, and again, going on strict translation, which means you gotta adapt. I just don't want it to be word for word. If I ask for a translation, it's not that hard to find. SparkNotes has translations of those texts. I need to see how you're interpreting it for a modern day audience using specific slang or idiom or vernacular that would display that you understand it and just expressing it in a way that's more approachable or understandable by a larger mass of people. Okay, so when we read soliloquy in Act 3, Scene 1, and that's a speech, to be or not to be, Act 3, Scene 1, it has the whole speech there. And in the past, with other classes, I've sort of broken down to what the speech is saying. It said, should I die or should I live with these tragedies or die and rest in peace? So the person said, should I live or should I die? Right? Second step, death or peace sounds good. What he's saying that is, killing myself sounds like a good idea. All right? However, they then start to change the tune, right? It says next is, you don't know what happened after death. Without knowing, you will not be able to go to the other side. You'll not be willing to go to the other side. You'll live with the abuse from superiors, unrequited love, or unreturned love, insults from other people, a corrupt legal system. People are afraid to die. Those are the 6 points we're talking about. So basically, I want to point out the fact that when people see this speech, they tend to think it's Hamlet wanting to commit suicide, and that's not true. It's Hamlet contemplating suicide for about 25% of the speech. For the other 75% of the speech, he's talking himself out of it, right? In the first part of the speech, he kind of admits, yeah, if I kill myself, I don't have to worry about anything. The rest, I don't have to worry about my uncle and my mom together. I don't have to worry about what's going on with Ophelia. I can just be at rest and die. But then he spends the rest of the speech talking about, well, what happens if you die? If you die, will you go to, is there a heaven? And if you don't go to heaven, well, where do you go? And is it worse than what it is here? I guess this is why people lie, right? And I guess it makes me a coward for not wanting to do it, but I can't do it because I don't know what's going to happen once I die. And that's a key speech because that is Hamlet in a nutshell. He can't do anything for sure unless he's absolutely sure, right? And him not wanting to kill himself is not based upon a higher moral principle of you have one life to live. It's simply, I don't know what's going to happen. If he knew what was going to happen on the other side, if he knew that life would be happier and simpler, he would have done it. He wouldn't have hesitated. But now he can't because he needs to know what's happening. So these are main points, but there are more details in the actual speech. So those are the main points I would bring up, but there's some more details in that speech you can include. But there are different things you can do to make sure that you add more detail to your outline. Step 2 is look for sample translations, right? So you can read Sparks Notes for translation to check comprehension, which means I really want you to go to Sparks Notes, look at to be or not to be, look at the straight bog forward general translation you would see there, because I want you to understand what they're trying to say. right? Because your idea is you have to adapt what we're trying to say to the audience that would become more receptive, right? So, you know, you don't, you need to make sure that whatever the person's saying, the redesign is cool, and it's also something that would garner attention. Okay, so for the step two, I have found numerous amounts of YouTube videos that show the different levels. I'm going to try to show a couple of them. I want to activate one, and then if you're at home, I want you to tell me if you see or hear anything once I do it, when I tell you that I've done it. If not, then I will create a new screen share so we can all look at it. Okay? So I'm going to just try this right now. Okay, if you're online, what do you see?
Oh,
What do you see right now?
it's the screen that you clicking this link, but there's no video.
Okay, all right. What do you see now?
Oh, we can see the YouTube.
Okay, so here's an example of two students. It looks like Willowwood, but it's not Willowwood. And they did the translation. I want you to look at what they did, and we're going to talk about why I would have given this a level 4 plus. And I want you to talk about why you think it's a level 4 plus. So just listen.
So I was like thinking, is it better to like live or die?
Hold on. Sorry, let's do it again.
Or should I like actually fight and like totally die? Is it better to like live or die? If I just keep taking it, would I be like more of a hero? Because you know, I'm like totally suffering and stuff. Or should I like actually fight and like totally die? Dying, sleeping. Oh gee, I love sleeping. They're like basically the same thing, right? And if I like die, then I could totally stop all the bad feelings and fix my like totally broken heart. I mean, all these bad things are just like part of life. Sleeping or dying. That sounds like so nice. And like dreaming, but that's so totally the problem. Maybe like when I'm dead, I'll still like totally dream and stuff. Like when I was like alive. So wait, maybe I should like think about this dying thing for a sec? Because this whole pain and heartbreak stuff, it could like totally last forever if I die. It would like kind of suck if I had to keep like suffering like I do in life. Because then that means people will still like be totally awful to me, and stupid boys would keep like breaking my heart and being jerks, and the whole world would just like be a mess. And I like mentioned that people could still be totally horrible. I'm like not sure if killing myself would actually make that stuff like disappear. I mean, it's like why would I keep like putting up with all this stuff and having like totally the worst life ever unless something inside me was like scared about death? I mean, dying totally isn't like going to the mall or something. You don't know if for sure if there's gonna be like a Juicy outlet or like a Victoria's Secret because no one's ever like been there and then come back to tell us what death is like. So I guess like because death is so mysterious and stuff, all the totally like awful stuff in life actually seems literally way better than the scary like mysterious death. So does this make scared of death thing like make me not brave and stuff? Because I totally just spent way too much time like literally thinking about what might happen if I like kill myself. I totally could have like gone shopping or gotten a tan or like killed my murderous uncle or something in this time, but I totally didn't because I was so busy being scared of death. And now I'm like so depressed I don't even want to do anything. OMG!
Okay, so, well, see, that's a good point. You wanted us as a group work. Now, I said, no, again, if I were marking that, I would give it a level 4. Why do you think I would give that a level 4? What was about it that not only did the task I wanted to do, but showed that it went beyond what I would normally ask for. So the accent and so both the accent and the slang is what I'm asking for, right? That you've adapted it. What other things, so they've taken it and they put it in a slang or vernacular, right? It's different from what was written in the original text, and it would match up with a more modern day feel. What's something else they did that would be a level 4 plus? Do we want to guess? Something else they did. What's a soliloquy in Shakespeare when we talk about tragedy? So I say this is a soliloquy. What does it mean? Yeah. Do I know what it means, a soliloquy? I'm sure you might have heard it before. Break down the word. Soliloquy. 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 What's a soliloquy? Solo. Right. One person talking. Right? What did they do?
Oh, they do like a group, like two people.
Right. They did basically they made a soliloquy into a dialogue where two people are talking. Right?
Yep.
So that's something that I wouldn't have expected, but it was done really well. So if that happened, like, oh wow, geez, that's a level 4 plus. Because at so they achieved all the goals. They translated the text correctly. They put it in the modern day slang. They adapted it, right? But they also said, a twist on it, we took the soliloquy and made it into a dialogue. And they divided it up where they both spoke back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They did all the smart things too. They made a reference to the play. Like she says, goes, and she's talking about the fact that they were thinking about killing themselves, but then they talked themselves out of it. And she goes at the end, I spent so much time thinking about it. I could have gone to the mall or kill my murderous uncle, right? She's making reference to the play, even though she's kind of adapted it. And she's kind of saying, oh, that's actually quite smart. She's saying that I spent all this time talking about killing myself. I could have done a bunch of things like kill my uncle, right? Because technically, he does say the speech when he's thinking about what should he do, right? Should I kill my uncle? Should I just let this go? Should I just let him die? That's an example of it, right? Again, that's how you could do a translation. Was it word for word? No. Right? They covered a lot of stuff, but it wasn't like a strict translation word for word. They just simply designed it in a way that allowed them to translate in a way that's effective, to make it more modern day, and also to add a twist to it. So that would, for me, would be level 4 plus. I'm going to show you level 4 and 3 plus after this. Yes.
So would I translate maintain the formal like the original text, but let's change
No, change. So no, the original play, right? They changed it to. They kept the idea of death, but they kept it as two young women in the early 2000s talking about death, right? You can. And we'll talk a little bit about it when we talk about how to make transitions. But I just want to show you that example. Like they basically kept the message the same, but they kept they just changed it a little bit. And I'm going to talk about the message in a second as well, as we go over a couple more of these examples. So I'm going to click on this one, which is level 4. Could even be 4 plus, but I give it a little. I would have given it a level 4. Okay, I'm going to just do share so everyone can see it. Give me a second. So please pay attention to how this person adapted it. It's different, but they would have gotten a level 4 because they did it this way.
Big 20 22. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep. To sleep, perchance to dream, aye, there's the rub. For in this sleep of death, what dreams may come! When we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would farthels bear, to sweat and grunt under a weary life, but that the fear of something after death, the undiscovered country from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to those that we know not of. Thus, conscience doth make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied over by the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment, with disregard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action. And then Ophelia comes in, and how do you close this thing?
Yes. Now, why is that a 4? What do you think that's a 4? What did the person do?
It's really special and interesting is that he's facing the mirror. He's looking in the mirror and saying his words. And then he's like the language that he's using is um, so humorous.
Right. So he's doing a couple of things, right? First off, he's reading the original text, but he's having a subtitles underneath it, translation, right? So he's translating it to modern day language, right? And he's putting it in modern day context, right? So you automatically, when he says in the original language, look down. Oh, that's what he means, right? So it's that translation. He decided not to just translate the speech and not have the original text. He's saying, I'm going to read the original text, but I'm going to translate it at the bottom. He makes references to modern day events. He says that's why Obama's doing healthcare. You're making shitty jobs. He swears a bit, but the idea is to get you to think about the fact that he's just literally translating. Now, his translation is far more closer to almost word for word, but even the terms he uses when he's translating into the text below is maybe smaller than what the original message is in the original text. So you see he's done that translation. That is an example of 4 because he's done everything I wanted, did it well, and the little caveat you could say, puts him on top a little bit, is that he said, I'll actually read the original text and I'll do it like a translation. So if you saw it, you're like, oh, that's what it means. I know what that means. I know what that means. It's like watching a foreign film, right? Or a foreign language film that you don't understand, but the translation is below. We'll do one more, and this is level 3+. This also could be a 4-. It depends on a few things, but I think this is another good example. This one I'm not going to talk about. I'll talk about, but I'm not going to show it. You can look at it on your own. Again, this is all things that you can, on your own, just click on and visit YouTube as these links are there.
Question. Would I rather be alive or 6 feet under? Am I a boss if I just deal with all the garbage in my life? Or should I fight and cut the crap off for good? To me, dying is like being asleep, being knocked out cold. That's how I would end my pain. And the bull life has been thrown my way. Yeah, that's what I'm about. Me dying is like me sleeping, and I might even dream. Wait, that's the catch. When we die, don't nobody know what kind of dreams we gonna have. Especially after we leave all of this mess behind. That for sure has got me thinking now. That's why don't nobody wanna die. They rather sit here and suffer. I mean, who really wants to put up with all the embarrassments of life? Stuff like being abused by the man, conceited heads, lovers getting no play, the jacked up legal system, rude people in office, innocent people being taken advantage of by these hood rats. When we could just draw a gun, send one shot to the dome and end it. Who's really gonna go through all this we call life? Only if they scared of something bad happening after they die. The grave. A place nobody has ever peeped or comes back from. We all think about it though, and don't get no answers, so we stick to the shit we know, instead of going to find out for ourselves. Being afraid to die makes us all punks. All of us. Thinking too much makes us weaker by the minute. Then we stop doing things we said we was gonna do. But here comes Ophelia.
Okay, 3+. Why do you think it's a 3+? 3+ kind of maybe 4-. So no screen, but generally speaking, I don't really care about whether I see you or not, but generally speaking, she did everything correct. Translated, put in a slang, adapted things she wanted to adapt. That's my expectation, right? I expect that, that's what I got. So that's 3+, could be a 4-, right? The only thing that was a little annoying is that the tape kind of was clicking in the background. But generally speaking, that's another example of translation, right? So those are the ones I want. That's the last one I'm gonna look at. The last one because the guy is singing and he's spending too much time worried. The last one I gave, I would have given maybe a 2+, 3-, maybe even a 2, because while some of the ideas are there, he's too busy singing, performing, and he's kind of forgetting the idea to translate, not to perform, right? So you can go one way where it gets you're hyper vigilant and you translate everything and you good job of the adaptation. You can go another way where you're too into the adaptation that you missed the point. Okay, yes. We're almost done. Okay. So step 3 is how to create your own model version. You could do the following, which means when you're creating your version, here are the 3 things you could do, right? Which means you need to decide which one you want to do. First style is these particular vernacular slang. So gangster, ballet girls from the 80s, Cockney slang from a certain decade, 21st century, 1950s, 60s. I'll show you another text message, which means you could write it as a particular type of slang or vernacular, which is just sort of words that are used within a form of communication that's not commonly known unless you know the vernacular. All right, someone says, sup, man, that's not a word. That's a vernacular, right? Nodding someone's head at somebody when you see them is a vernacular, a code, right? Certain things people do within a cultural group or a group of people that communicate information that you can learn, but you have to sort of be part of it. So you can do it that way. Or you can change the topic to something similar, right? Which is to continue to be an athlete, to be a vampire or a human, just between the unknown hardship or an unknown situation. Here's the key thing you have to understand about this. This speech isn't about Hamlet wanting to commit suicide. He never does. It's about his choice between a known hardship and an unknown situation. And Hamlet will always choose the known hardship over the unknown situation, right? So when he says, do I kill myself, which is the unknown situation, or do I put up with a difficult life, which is a known hardship? And while he spends 25% talking about it would be good to go into the unknown situation, he spends the other 75% of the speech talking about why he's willing to stay in the known hardship. So if you were doing this as, if you changed number 2 and you were doing it as, changing the topic to something familiar, you said to play basketball and not play basketball, you're never going to stop playing basketball. You'll talk about, yeah, I won't have to play basketball and I won't have to get up early. I won't have to worry about missing my friends' parties. I can enjoy, I can have some rest. But wait, what if I don't play basketball? Maybe I'll get fat. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe like you start to doubt yourself because you have no idea what life would be like if you stop playing basketball, right? A lot of times when people do this thing, they mix it up and they choose the unknown situation over the known hardship. And that's not Hamlet. Hamlet will always choose the known hardship versus the unknown situation because he cannot, will not act unless he knows what the consequences are, right? So keep that in mind if you decide to change the topic to something similar, which means it doesn't have to be about life or death. It has to be about 2 different things. One thing is hard that you hate. The one thing is unknown that might be better, and you choose the thing that's hard that you hate, right? Or read the speech with subtitles on video, which means kind of do what the guy did, Jesse Thunderwig, which is just basically you come up with you do it like you are watching a foreign film, and there's like a translation below it so I can understand what's going on. Follow the writing process. So remember, these are the things you need to have in your speech. Part 1 is should I die? Part 2 is dying would make life easier. Part 3 is but wait, what happens when we die? Part 4 is when we don't know what will happen after we die. Part 5 is since we don't know, we are willing to put up with so much. Part 6 is so, like everyone else, I will do nothing. Remember that when you're doing this, the thing that's also important is that well, again, when I say you adapt certain things, you have to keep certain ideas. Like Hamlet talks about 4 things that people put up with that make life difficult. Your speech should also cover that, right? What are the 4 things that people wouldn't put up with because they're so afraid of dying? Okay, so know that part. Know the length. I'm going to be looking at, is your speech spending a lot of time talking about how suicide is, or how choosing the unknown situation? Great, and a little time talking about the known hardship? Then it's wrong. It should be, again, if it's a page-long speech, the first quarter of the page should be on why things would be good if you commit suicide. And the 3 quarters or 70% of the page should be, I'm not going to do this because I'm too afraid of what's going to happen to me. Right? I don't know what's going to happen, so therefore I'll do nothing. Keep that in mind when doing this specific assignment. Also, remember, the best way to do this assignment is to look at the original text, look at a SparkNotes simple translation, and then take that SparkNotes simple translation and adapt it to a modern day slang or vernacular, or changing the subject, or how would you change that? I'm not asking you to go back and literally do the translation yourself. You don't have to, it's been done for you. When you look at the sort of modern day take on a Shakespearean text, that's the middle stage between your adaptation translation and the original text. So please, 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 and pretty please, read the standard translation of the text you would find on SparkNotes. Once you've read that and understand it, then you must create your own translation adaptation. not just repeat the stuff that you found in the online original text. Online modern day text. Okay, I want to see that your writing style in that speech, that speech, and I want to see that you get it. Make sure you cover those 6 parts. Make sure the most important parts of the speech are covered in your translation. Now, on each one of these translations, they always mention the 4 things that he says people will put up with if they don't, the 4 things people put up with because they're too afraid to die. And he also mentions the fact that that people are all cowards because we won't do anything. He acknowledges that as much as we want to take risks, human beings are cowards and will never make a decision if they don't know what the 100% reality. Okay, so include those aspects there. Show me you understand the translation. If you give it to me to edit, I'll say, hey, you're missing this part. But make sure that's done. Any other questions? Yes. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.